All right, everybody, welcome to the latest installment of the walkthrough. I'm your host, Anthony Marino. Happy to be here with you once again, talking everything Buffalo Bills. Of course, part of the Overreaction Sports Network, and you know that we are presented to you each and every week by our friends at FanDuel. Jumping into things, off-season mode, full effect, plenty to talk about on this week's show. I want to talk a little bit about my philosophy when it comes to wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But very important, real quick, congratulations to the entire Fina family. Mimi celebrated her wedding this weekend, and just want to give a shout out to John and his beautiful family. Certainly a proud day for all of them, and hopefully everyone had an absolute fantastic time. Moving forward, a little bit of news, and you probably saw this as it came out on Friday afternoon. I think Ian Rappaport might have been the first one to report this, but Alec Anderson signing a new contract with the Buffalo Bills. You might remember he was set to be a restricted free agent. That restricted number would have been about $3.5 million for this upcoming season. He agreed to a one-year contract with the Bills at $3 million, $1.8 million guaranteed for the 2026 season. So what does that mean for the Bills? Well, first off, I'm happy to see that Anderson will be back in Buffalo. When you talk about offensive line depth, certainly that's something that you need to put when I say a little bit of a premium on, right? Like if one of your starters goes down, you need someone reliable that can step in for you. And Anderson has certainly been that player for the Bills in the past. He can play center, he can play guard, he can play tackle when needed. We certainly saw that last year in the matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, here is a guy that can definitely play in a number of different positions if he is a backup. And I say if he is a backup because we all know that David Edwards is going to, set to be a free agent. Do the Bills try to bring him back? I'm not quite sure. Have seen varying numbers on what his value in free agency would be. Spotrac has him as high as 19-point-something million dollars. There was a new ranking of the top 150 free agents that came out on The Athletic. I think it was maybe on Friday. And they had David Edwards valued at a 2-year, $22 million contract, which certainly feels a little bit more reasonable. Side note, The Athletic also had Connor McGovern valued at a 2-year, $22 million number. So certainly lower than what we've seen in some other places and what might be anticipated. But one of the biggest questions for the Bills is what they're going to do at that left guard position, what they're going to do at center. And with Anderson signing this contract, right, like a $3 million deal, that doesn't scream to me, oh, he's competing for a starting job at left guard or at center. It just doesn't, right? So, listen, if they're going to bring back Edwards or McGovern, great. If they're going to look at this and say, hey, at left guard, Alec Anderson is the floor, and I don't say that in any negative way, right? If Alec Anderson is your starter at left guard this season, I have no qualms with that whatsoever. But maybe they'll look at it and say, hey, we're going to add someone in the draft that can compete with him or what that can look like. So as I see this, and for Anderson too, it could be I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to have an opportunity to compete for a starting guard job or center job. And, and if I do that and if I perform well, hey, that 1-year, $3 million contract, who knows what that could turn itself into in the future. So as I say that, I'm happy to see that Anderson is going to be back in Buffalo again, especially with the questions around David Edwards and Connor McGovern and their contracts. So if he is one that is going to come back, will be back in Buffalo, he can be a starter at one of those two positions. For me personally, I think it would have to be left guard. Either that or Anderson would definitely need to switch to decaf because he runs a little bit hot, to say the least. And I think you need your center, right? When you think in the mold of Eric Wood, Mitch Morris, Connor McGovern, those guys are much more even keeled. Anderson brings a little bit of an edge. So, I could see him being the Bills' starting left guard this season, but there's a lot to figure out in the coming weeks before free agency gets started with the legal tampering period on March 9th. And of course, the combine gets started next week. And I think, that's when the rumor mill really starts to pick up, and we'll hear a lot of different things that are out there. But again, congratulations to Alec Anderson. Glad he will be back in Buffalo this season. That's something that makes me happy. What also makes me happy? Chicken wings. Big shout out to our friends at Anchor Bar for supporting the walkthrough and all of the shows here at the Overreaction Sports Network each and every week. We appreciate everybody at Anchor Bar for all of their support. And you guys know it's the home of the original Buffalo chicken wing. It's the place to watch your favorite sporting events this time of year. Maybe you're into the NBA, maybe you're going to look at things and say, hey, there's a couple days left of the Olympics. Let's get out to Anchor Bar and watch some of that. Obviously, USA playing in the gold medal game on Sunday. College basketball in full swing, like plenty to fill the gap between now and the start of the Buffalo Bills season. Now, you can go to anchorbar.com, get all the information on their menus, online ordering, different locations. And listen, if you need something to go with your wings, they've got burgers, salads, pizza, tenders, kind of you name it. There's a full variety that they bring to you when you go to Anchor Bar. So, right now, Anchor Bar, they've got so many locations across the country, right? New spots in Tucson, Arizona, Frisco, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina. Still waiting for them to open one here in Albany, New York. I'm going to have to reach out to somebody to see if we can do something there. But big shout out to everybody at Anchor Bar. Thank you for the support of the Overreaction Sports Network and the walkthrough. So, all right, let's talk about wide receiver. And wide receiver talk is going to continue throughout free agency, throughout the draft. I hope you like talking about wide receiver or listening to talk about wide receiver because we got a lot to discuss. And I want to get your thoughts in the comments here as well. If you're on YouTube, you can comment. If you're watching the live stream or if you're watching it recorded later on, let me know your thoughts. I'm going to talk about my philosophy here, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Marino at any point to let me know your thoughts there as well. Listen, and those of you that have followed me for a long time, maybe my work at Buffalo Rumblings, other shows that I've been on, I love to talk about the draft, right? The draft, it's a lot of fun. You kind of got these, shiny new members of the team that are joining, and it's easy to get excited about new guys coming in and the potential that they can bring. But when it comes to wide receiver, I do not think the Buffalo Bills can afford to wait until the draft. When you're picking at number 26, when you've got a limited number of picks, not a ton of draft capital to be able to move up, to me, this is not the year that you're packaging picks to move up in the draft, right? It's not a top-heavy draft. There's a lot of depth, in my opinion, based on the Bills' salary cap situation, kind of what things look like, a new 3-4 defense. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm more in favor of trading down in the draft and accumulating more picks and, the third, fourth, fifth round where you can find some gems where you've seen Brandon Beane have some success there, because I think you need more youth and not less, especially with the transition from the 4-3 to the 3-4 and based on the number of free agents that the Buffalo Bills have now and some of the holes that they certainly need to fill. But I say all of that. We're not going to get into the draft talk today, but to let you know a little bit of my mindset and kind of where that goes with the philosophy here. Because I think when you come towards the start of the league year, when you come into free agency, the Bills need to do something that is a relative sure thing, in my opinion. Bringing in an alpha type wide receiver that can have an immediate impact for the Bills. And, over these past couple of years, we have not seen that happen in Buffalo, right? Last year with the signing of Josh Palmer, okay, number 3 wide receiver and with the Chargers, for him to come to Buffalo, of course, injuries, played a piece into that really throughout training camp and then throughout the season that we never really got to see what Palmer could be in the offense. But for the periods where he was relatively healthy, okay, looked like a number 3 wide receiver. Not that there's any knock on that. The money you gave him is kind of a contract that you give to a number 3 wide receiver. I mean, I realize we can talk about things and say, gosh, you're giving someone in excess of $10 million per year. That's a lot of money. Not by comparison to top wide receivers in the NFL. When you've got guys making north of 30, 35, almost $40 million a season, right? You're going to get what you pay for. And if you're signing a free agent in that $10 million range, that's what you're going to get, right? I mean, that's the type of contract that was given to John Brown and Cole Beasley. Well, that was in 2019, right? Think how much lower the salary cap was then when you think back 7 years ago. That's not the case today when you make that kind of an investment. And is that the type of investment that you want to be making? You think the year before, the signing of Curtis Samuel, many people were excited about that. Wide receiver experts in the field were excited about that. But Curtis Samuel was signed. Stephon Diggs was still on the roster, right? They hadn't traded Stephon Diggs yet. So he was coming in like as your number 2, or again, your number 3, right? For the contract that he got, it was Stephon Diggs, it was Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and then you add Curtis Samuel to the mix. That's great. Well, you remove a wide receiver 1 from the equation, regardless of what your thoughts are on Diggs, the player that he was, the attention that he would command each and every season. Curtis Samuel is not someone that comes in to be your number 1 wide receiver. So if you're going to make a move this offseason, you can't just wait till the draft. That is too much of an unknown. And again, when you're picking at 26, I feel like there's more that is out of your control, being able to move up to get someone that you want, as opposed to within free agency. And when you look at the trade market, and there's a few possibilities that are out there. I don't always know how reasonable they are, because again, it's, you need that willing partner, whether it's a free agent to choose you. But I feel like there's more that you can do within your control, right? If you're in a bidding war for a free agent, okay, you've got some flexibility for how much more you're willing to do to get a player. When it comes to making a trade, okay, what can you do with additional assets? When it comes to the draft, there's so many variables in place of wanting to trade up or what additional teams are going to do. And it's in a very short period of time, right? When these teams are on the clock, and yes, I get it. There's a lot of conversations that take place before that, but it's happening in real time, and it's happening rather quickly. And I just don't think you can wait until that point. Now, I still feel that the Bills should do something in the draft, but it removes that pressure of when you don't really make a bigger move in free agency or via trade before the draft, then you're looking at things and it's a little bit of a desperation play. For me, if you end up drafting a wide receiver in the first, second, third round, in addition to one of these types of moves that we're going to talk about, I'm certainly okay with that. And I have a feeling that you might be too. So, first, I think there's kind of a couple of different buckets that you look at things. One is what I call like a young trade target. 2 guys that fall into that bucket, there's been a lot of conversation around right now: Marvin Harrison Jr. With the Arizona Cardinals, and Brian Thomas Jr. with the Jacksonville Jaguars. 2 guys that were first-round draft picks in 2024. Brian Thomas Jr., a phenomenal rookie season in Jacksonville. Then all of a sudden, you've got a change in the coaching staff. Now you've got a new general manager in place, and he certainly had a disappointing sophomore season by comparison to what he did as a rookie. So Brian Thomas Jr. might be a little bit of a buy low candidate right now, and the same for Marvin Harrison Jr., right? A top 5 pick in the draft. When you look at the talent that he brings, kind of just the legacy, right? The son of Marvin Harrison, comes out as a rookie, close to 900 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, and then battled some injuries, and just whatever is taking place in Arizona right now is it's just not working, right? When you look at now, they've got new coaches coming in. Who knows what they'll be doing at quarterback? Is Kyler Murray going to be gone? Are they a team that kind of needs to rip it down to the studs and to kind of rebound? But I will say they are a team that needs to get as many assets as they possibly can in advance of the 2027 draft, because there's just not the quarterbacks here, but there will be in the 2027 draft, and they're going to be competing with teams like the Jets and the Dolphins to try and move up to draft their quarterback of the future. So, those are 2 guys that I can definitely get excited about, because, while they're not at the peak of their game, you're still able to bring them in on a rookie contract, at a point in their career where they're still developing and they're still growing. You give them the opportunity to play in, Joe Brady's offense, assuming that, hey, you bring in this type of wide receiver, you're going to get them the targets and utilize them and play to their strengths. But Brian Thomas Jr., obviously a guy that I loved during the draft process. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. too, but knowing that he was going to be going top 5, there was no chance that the Bills were going to be able to move up to draft him. So those are two that you look at as, established production that they've had in the past, but they're young. The arrow is still pointing up for both of these two players. What it would cost to get them, I mean, who knows, right? Once it kind of gets into a bidding war, certainly, you have to wait and see. I would imagine for the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they're going to trade him to the Buffalo Bills or any other team in the AFC, there's going to have to be a little bit of a premium on top of that, because you basically traded an asset to one of your competitors. But those are two guys I certainly have an eye on. Next up are what I call more established trade targets, right? A.J. Brown with the Philadelphia Eagles, Chris Olave with the New Orleans Saints, and Nico Collins with the Houston Texans. And I add Nico Collins to this list because John Ledyard was on with Chopin the Bulldog on WGR, and he threw Collins' name out there as kind of like a sneaky one to keep an eye on. So I don't know if the Texans will really look to make a move there, but when Ledyard threw that out, I'm like, okay, that's the type of player that fits that mold. And, A.J. Brown, there's so much conversation around right now. And immediately, I'm sure some of you are saying, no chance with A.J. Brown. Reminds me too much of Stephon Diggs, that diva wide receiver type. And it's, I get it. I think I'm in a little bit of a different bucket because there's like that sliding scale of talent and headache. And traditionally, when a player comes to the new team, they're going to be on their best behavior right away, right? We saw it with Diggs. I mean, especially those first two seasons, 2020, 2021 season, the Bills offense was as electric as we had ever seen it before. And, in my opinion, no coincidence, because Stephon Diggs came in. A.J. Brown going to turn 29, still young enough. Like, I can look at this, if the Eagles are just done, if things have soured, if his relationship with Jalen Hurts, if it's just not there and he wants out, come to Buffalo, be on your best behavior for at least 2 seasons, and give Josh Allen one of the best wide receivers that he could ever play with during these 2 years, right? And then if the headaches start, then you move on, then you make a trade, then you cut him. I don't care what it is, but I'm looking at this 2-year window of saying, again, now that Josh Allen is going to be, approaching 30 years old and not getting to the tail end of his career, I'm not saying that, but it's just like, A.J. Brown is probably the most talented quarterback based on his performance, his age, where he is in his career right now, that I at least think could be a reasonable target and brings the skill set that he can have the immediate impact. Certainly a Nico Collins or Chris Olave in the same vein could. I just don't know how realistic that either of those two guys are going to be traded right now. If it is something that they're on the market, certainly they fall into that same kind of category as A.J. Brown. Chris Olave comes in. Unfortunately, I think the Saints did too well down the stretch last season, right? Once they made the switch at quarterback to Tyler Schaff. And listen, they have shown under Kellen Moore that they can be a competitive NFL franchise. Are they going to look to move Chris Olave, as he's in the 5th year of his rookie contract? I don't know, but I would certainly love to see it happen if he were to come to Buffalo, get a new contract. And again, Nico Collins, I feel like a little bit more of a stretch. To me, I'm probably I don't want to say the biggest fan of the established trade targets, right? But it comes in and it feels like a little bit more of a sure thing than the other options that we talk about. Another piece is free agents, and maybe not the strongest free agent class this year. 3 names that continue to pop up. And the first one, I'm a little bit more shaky on. Rashid Shaheed, right? Traded this at the trade deadline to the Seattle Seahawks, wins a Super Bowl this past year, was a target that I think many Bills fans looked at and said, okay, for what the cost would be to acquire him, what he can bring can certainly fill a void for the Buffalo Bills. To me, I'm looking for what I call a wide receiver 1. And I know some might scratch their head and saying listen, everybody eats. You have guys that can perform, but I am looking for more of a alpha wide receiver. And at least the names that we've mentioned before, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Nico Collins, we've seen those 5 guys be the alpha on a consistent basis for for their clubs in different variations. For Shaheed, he's more of a number two, brings a skill set to Buffalo that certainly would like, but I debated whether or not I should put him on the list. Another one, Alec Pierce, right? Indianapolis Colts had a breakout season in 2025, only 47 catches, but goes over 1,000 yards. I mean, certainly brings an element to the Buffalo Bills offense that they have lacked before. And again, similar to Brian Thomas Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr., here's a guy where the arrow is pointing up, right? Like he is getting towards the prime in his career. And yes, you can look at things, and no disrespect to Daniel Jones, but just say, now he has the opportunity to play with Josh Allen, right? Like only got 85 targets last year, even if you get that up to like 100. And if he goes from 47 catches to 55, what is that going to look like? Do you have a 1,200-yard receiver, a true deep threat for you that brings a level of athleticism, the ability to high point the ball, that brings an element to the Buffalo Bills offense that they currently do not have? Now, for Pierce, probably going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to even upwards of like $30 million. So it is not a cheap addition that needs to take place. And I get it. Some of you listening or watching right now might be thinking to yourself, the Buffalo Bills, they don't have the cap space. I think they will, right? You can do the restructures with Josh Allen and Spencer Brown and Ed Oliver and Deion Dawkins, and you can cut Curtis Samuel, and you can do a restructure with Dawson Knox. And there's a lot of different things that the Bills can do to get themselves where they'd have about $40 million in cap space. And then you can play with all of the numbers when it ties into void years and signing bonuses and how you kind of prorate those things out over the life of the contract. They can have a lot of flexibility to make a move for someone like Alec Pierce. Another popular name, Mike Evans. Personally, I will be shocked to see if Mike Evans leaves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Any of the conversation right now, I'm guessing it's kind of a smart play from his representation and his agent to just be like, yeah, we don't want to make it seem like just a sure thing that we're going to re-sign in Tampa Bay. Like, let's have the notion out there that he could go somewhere else. And I get that he's 33 years old. If you watch Mike Evans play, the ability is still there. Only reason he didn't go over 1,000 yards this season was because of the injury. One of the most reliable wide receivers in all of football. And honestly, you're probably getting him for under $20 million a year, which feels like a relative bargain right now because of his age. Now, if he is to come in, right, it is a short window, and it goes to what I was saying before. You still have to do something in the draft. Not like the year with Keon Coleman in 2024, where everyone knew the Bills were going to take a wide receiver based on other moves they had made. No, this is the type of situation where if Mike Evans comes in, you need to spend your first, your second, or your third to bring in, a bit of youth into the mix to be able to play with the team where they can develop as Mike Evans is, likely finishing out his career. So a bunch of options. And listen, let me know in the comments section if there's someone that you felt that I missed, right? But are you more in that Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr. category, right, where you're trading for some young talent? Do you look to trade for more of an established target like A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Nico Collins? Maybe could throw Michael Pittman in there, but I don't see him at that same type of level. Or is it going the free agent route with an Alec Pierce, Mike Evans, Rashid Shaheed? That certainly, is another option as well. So let me know your thoughts. One other thing I wanted to throw out to you guys real quick. I'm going to be hosting a March Madness pool for Buffalo Bills fans. All the proceeds will benefit the Alzheimer's Association. We'll have some great prizes for the, of course, would love all of you to be a part of it. So, we've got a little, but I wanted to put it on your radar that over the coming weeks, that will be out as well. And hope that everyone can join us to help a very, very worthy cause. So, listen, it has been fun chatting with you guys again today. Congratulations to the Fina family. Congratulations to Alec Anderson on his new deal. And you've all heard kind of my thoughts, at least when it comes to making a big move for a wide receiver for Josh Allen, Joe Brady, and the Buffalo Bills offense. So I'm going to get out of here for now. Thank you for tuning in each and every week. Appreciate you guys. Go Bills, and we'll see you next time. Take care.